outright. Everybody looked great, everybody had such a great attitude. The facility was really clean and just so much more advanced.
Technology can truly enhance your education. When we brought in Chromebooks and we started using the smart TVs, we really tapped into the 21st century learner.
Being a student at Paul Mitchell is great because the learning leaders, they're there to guide you in the right direction. They give you the opportunity to make decisions on your own.
They accept you for who you are, and they're always welcome and honest and open.
We have encouraged our guests to post Google reviews. So far to date, have over 100 reviews with an average rating of 4.5 stars.
So I like that this isn't just for hair and beauty, but it's also a business college. You can learn hair, you can brush it, you can tease it, you can learn all of that, but to do business, that's something that really takes a whole different level of education.
Whether we're in the classroom or at the color bar, we're always having a great time at Paul Mitchell, the school of St. Louis.
Being a student at Paul Mitchell gives you a lot of opportunity for when you're ready to get out into the real world.
Thank you for taking a sneak peek of our campus, and we can't wait for you to come and see what a Paul Mitchell education can do for you.
Hello everybody, we're back. Your host, Chess Grandmaster Yasser Sirwan, along with my friend and colleague Ben Feingold. Welcome again, Ben. Sorry that Jennifer Shahadi isn't here. Allergy sufferer, I'm afraid. And sorry for that technical problem. We are having a wonderful interview with the founder, Rex Singfield, which we will show you shortly. And in the meanwhile, as we're getting that one teed up, Ben, you had a pretty sharp game that was going on between Josh Friedel and Mac Molnar, and things are definitely heated up in that game.
Yeah, let's go back a few moves to when knight takes e2 was played. This was the Navarre game you were talking about with Spitzer.
Yes, exactly.
And Molnar played h6, kicking the knight back to somewhere safer.
Right.
Knight to f3. And knight to a6. Black completes development, but sort of on the side of the board.
And this was the one Maurice said, "What? I tell my students, don't do that. Don't put your knight on the edge."
Boy, whenever we have these strong events, the U.S. Championship, the U.S. Women's Championship, I'm always like, how do I explain these moves to my students?
The rules are being
Almost
violated.
every game.
All right, and what happened?
Bishop e3. Okay,
No,
that move I can explain to my
yes.
students. Queen d6.
Also very self-explanatory.
White castles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we both like white center.
Definitely.
Like pretty nice for a Grunfeld type position.
We love the classical center.
Rook c8, preparing to play c5.
All right.
Knight to f4.
Okay.
Interesting move.
I would have brought the rooks
Rook
into
to
the center.
Yeah, we think alike. Maybe white wants to play e5, e6, or e5 and knight takes g6 and do something mean.
Yes.
Because there is there's sort of a nice pin here on the f7 pawn, and
Exactly.
g6 can be a little loose. That's a very aggressive move, knight to f4. King h7, breaking the pin.
And sidestepping all of
back
those.
to d3. Interesting
threats.
maneuver, controlling two key center squares. Wow, knight f4 to d3. Don't see that in the Grunfeld very often.
No, you don't.
And
then f5.
Taking advantage of white's maneuvering and keeping the rooks not in the center.
Right.
Black immediately attacks on the king's side. f5 is always a really double-edged move in the Grunfeld. Sometimes I'm happy my opponent plays it, and sometimes I'm not so happy.
Exactly.
So it's always very scary.
And
takes.
that's a key strategic moment right there, Ben. When he plays the move e4 takes f5, lots of ramifications. One of the things that happens in the Grunfeld, why you don't really like this kind of a counterattacking move in the center, is because of the move e4, e5, which closes out the bishop on g7 at the cost of the d5 square. But in either case, whether you play e4 takes f5 or e4, e5, black still gets the d5 square, and the move e4, e5 grabbing space would have attracted me.
Yeah, and we're actually trying to, black's trying to get rid of the white center here with the e4 and d4 pawns from a side pawn, activate the rook, And yeah, usually white's playing e5 and black is trying to get the white squares at the center. But here I think because both of white knights can go to e5, he was attracted on not playing e5 and hopefully putting one of his knights there later.
Fair enough.
And, well, Mac is thinking about which way to recapture. He must have recaptured while we were analyzing the game. So let's have a look at the current position.
I think he would probably play rook takes f5. That would be my guess. Rook takes f5 sets up an idea of perhaps sacrificing the exchange on f3 in the near future. And we do have those moves. Rook takes f5.
And knight c5, putting pressure on e6 and, well, immediately threatening knight takes b7.
As well as this offside knight on a6. Now, I mean, the move that what all Soviet school children learn is that in such positions, the move that you want to analyze is rook takes f3, messing up the kingside pawn structure. Now here, it's doubtful that there's enough compensation for the exchange, but with black's king a little bit exposed, it does throw the game into a bit of a spin. Rook f8. Again, I don't believe that the compensation is going to be worth an exchange, but it's the move that you have to look at.
I hate to agree with you, but I agree with you.
You do?
No, I love to agree with you.
When is our tiebreaker, Maurice?
Yasser and I have sort of a similar style, except that he plays well. That's the only difference. Otherwise, it's almost the same. Yeah, you always have to watch out for rook takes f3, but I agree here. I don't think white's as worried as in some positions. And we see this idea in a lot of different openings, not just this one. And well, it seems like if black doesn't have this exchange sacrifice and just tries to, quote unquote, play chess, I sort of like white in this position.
Big time. Big time. That b7 square, you pointed out the e6 square. But our co-leader, Alex Lenderman, is doing wonderful things as black in round 3, and Maurice is going to show you exactly how and why.
Well, we might end up calling him our sole leader after this round is up, because it seems as though he has the primrose path laid out for him now. The computer is saying, make just about any good move and you're winning. Why is that? Because after the move bishop f5, move rook f1 was played, and then f6, and now the only fighting chance was to play the move h3, fighting, in quotes. Black was still better, but not yet by too much. But instead, in time trouble, the move bishop to d2 was played. This move, the computer just says, no, you're dead. And in fact, multiple ways to die. One way we discuss, and it thinks is probably the primary candidate move, is the move queen to c6, now aggressing this knight. Another move is h4, but look at this knight. Nowhere to go, nothing to do with it. There are different moves you could play to defend. The one I've been analyzing mainly is this one, rook over to e1, but this explosive move comes in h4, a real bone cruncher. All of black's pieces are primed and ready to attack this king. The only one not working now is this rook, feeling a little bit sad that all the other pieces are having so much fun. You look at this position, there's just nothing to do. Everything here is hopeless. The move h3 trying to chase the knight now, well, by now you guessed it, thwunk, a knight sacrifice. Everything is hanging here. If you drop back and take with the knight, then simply h takes g3, and this knight cannot move because of that nasty pin on the long diagonal. And this is just going to be all she wrote, folks. Bishop to e3 doesn't help, trying to blunt that force of that diagonal after this trade. Rook takes, and that mate threat with the queen, with the rook, also a lateral threat on the bishop. Somebody's going to drop. A piece is going to fall off the board. So here, after this move, bishop to d2, black has a choice, like I said, queen c6 or h4, probably still in his preparation. Imagine such a beautiful miniature to win as black. Let's go to see what he actually did in the game, which move he chose after bishop to d2. Let's get back to the game here. It is still Lenderman on move. He simply has to find this move. Pull the game back up again. He simply has to find either queen c6, h4 also wins, rook a d8 wins. All of the moves win. It's crazy to have such an advantageous position, but sometimes there's an embarrassment of riches in chess. You see all these moves and you figure, do they all, can I really just win with everything? Is that true? And you start looking for the fine point, the right one, and then you make a mistake. There he's played the third choice, Rook AD8, the third choice of Houdini. Still, trust me, still devastating, still winning, but very classic, very human choice to bring the Rook into the game to say, look, I've been trained to use all my pieces, and there goes that sixth piece in the attack, and White with just all targets to worry about right here. All of this is targets. The knight's a target, the bishop's a target, that bishop's a target, this pawn is a target, this pawn will become one too, the king's a target. Everywhere it's target practice. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Maurice. And as my trainer and international master, Nikolai Minev would say, full disaster. Yeah, a full disaster on the chessboard.
When Maurice was having this discussion of the game, this move wins, this move wins, I was thinking of our good friend Roman Djindjahashvili, who's played in many U.S. championships. He would look at a position like this and say, I am looking, but I cannot find a move that doesn't win.
Wow. And sometimes, as Maurice was mentioning, there's an embarrassment of riches. I am one of those players. I like to see one clear, clean win, and I go for it. Yeah. And in this position, unfortunately for Lenderman, he just had so many just nice choices he wants to play. Queen c6, rook d8, h4. But every single natural move, I think the computer now is giving a +4 pawn advantage to Lenderman, and with good reason. I actually thought it was higher than 0.88 a moment ago.
But it's very nice that Lenderman played Rook AD8. It's very Morphy-esque. I lecture about Morphy a lot. I make videos about Morphy. I talk about Morphy. I walk around town with signs about Paul Morphy. People say, what are you doing? Then they realize, with the Rook on A8, the only piece not really participating in the attack, Rook to D8, I think Morphy would be really proud of that move.
And true enough, and by the way, you know, in all of the summer camps that we teach here at the St. Louis Chess Club and Scholastic Center, is we say chess is a team game. Get everybody involved, make sure you've given invitations to every one of your pieces. So you really can't criticize the move Rook A-D8 at all, and Queen C6 may be a better move for specific reasons, but that is a good move.
If somebody goes down in the team, there's always a beautiful replacement.
There you go. Now, you were about to bring up again the game between Timur Gariev and
I was surprised
Daniel
because
Naroditsky.
the players followed our suggestions. I always like when that happens. I have to bring those games up. It doesn't happen very often.
Well, Ben, these guys are really good.
Yeah, that's true. We have to give them some kudos.
Okay.
So we like Gariev's position because he was going to advance in the center, and you were looking for counterplay with the move b5, and that's exactly what happened. White played f4, as I suggested, and black played b5, as you suggested. So both sides were following their plans. And after the trade, well, White didn't really want to trade, I guess, and take on e7 because of this rook e8, and the e4 pawn is a bit loose.
Right, thanks to the knight on c5.
Yeah, this seems like black's getting good counterplay now.
Agreed.
So instead of doing that, go back to the game position, he just played rook f3. It's funny, one of the byproducts of f4 attacking is it gives the rook on f4 some squares so we can get out of the way of the bishop on b5.
Well, Jennifer, who is not here, again, because of allergies, she would not let this opportunity pass without saying, Rover, rook up and over. Rover.
It's actually not clear to me where the rook is going to go over. It could go either direction. So, okay, so rook f3, the bishop went back to a6. Black wants to keep his nice bishop on the diagonal and not give white the two bishops.
Makes sense.
And e5.
Wow.
So he's going for it right away.
Timur, he's making a big statement. He's looking to push Daniel right off the board with the move e4, e5.
Maybe we can disagree for the first time, although I think it's unlikely. I really like White's position.
You know, I do too. But if you said to me the computer thought it was only 0.88, I'd say, okay, that's fair. I liked Lenderman's position much, much more than Gariev's. But yes, we both still see that White's in the driver's seat. Daniel's got to come up with some good moves to get out of his situation. If he plays a move like Queen d7, that would be the first move you look at.
Getting out of the way of this.
Get out of the way of the rook.
Very scary rook.
Very scary. Now, do you go for e6, or do you try to plant a rook on the 7th with rook e7 coming?
Ooh, takes in rook e7 or e6. Also possible is a move like bishop c2, just trying to build
Just
a little more.
keeping
control
everything.
f5, control e4, put the bishop on a little better square, and well, slowly but surely break through. Maybe the rover will be with a move like rook on f to e3, and then try to break through on the 7th rank this way. There's a lot of good possibilities for white.
Exactly. The one move I didn't think that was that threatening was bishop c2. The reason is because of a specific defense that black has here. The move I have in mind is f7, f6. And I think I have enough defensive resources if you take on f6, for example. Then I'm quick to challenge on the e file. I don't see this as a problem.
I would be very tempted to play e6 here.
Which I kind of like, because I've lured your pawn forward and then keep the e file closed. I'll step back with the queen. Queen, yes, d8, e8. Doesn't
I want
matter.
to sacrifice here somehow. But I don't have my friend Houdini to help me.
Exactly.
My friend's off doing other work, helping Alex Lenderman out.
And after bishop h4, I was thinking f6, f5. And the position just suddenly got closed, just like that. And black's, I think, has reasonable prospects of holding this position. What has been played, by the way?
Moves were played in the game. So let's
update our board. Again, a very tense battle here. And I'm sure the game is going to be decided in a...
Something very interesting has happened.
Whoa.
So after e5...
Yeah, the frightening move.
He played the move queen to b8.
Wow, offering a pawn.
The other side of the board.
Now, we saw this yesterday in his game with Josh Friedel. Daniel, in a very difficult position, you know,
But the shocking move b4.
Right, threw away a pawn, and here he's sort of like he's throwing away a big center pawn, that juicy pawn on e7.
But not juicy enough for Gureyev.
What did he?
Who played the move f5.
Wow, okay. Really sharp now.
Talk about breaking through in the center.
Okay. I thought that this move f5 was going to be prefaced by bishop c2. Timur saw no reason why he doesn't want to just go for it. I guess his idea is if in case of bishop e5, there may be a tactic against the knight on c5, Ben. I was thinking of bishop e7, rook e8.
And then rook takes e5.
Exactly. And bad things happen to that knight on c5 if you take the rook.
Yeah, when all the pieces are away from black's king, e5, f5 usually works out pretty well.
Yeah. And by the way, notice that that queen on d2 is lurking, ready to hop, skip, and jump to h6.
And then we could have one of Jennifer's rovers.
Now we know what the rover is all
we're
about.
all set.
Yeah. Well, that would be overkill.
Queen b8 moving away from the king looks a little risky, but probably underestimated f5, thinking I'm sacrificing a pawn on e7, I'll get counterplay down the e file, I'll play queen to b4, and I'll get my play, you know, everywhere, but just f5 and kill, kill, kill. Not taking pawns, but attacking the king.
Wow. So let's see that move, the current situation again. So Daniel Naroditsky, U.S. junior champion, under serious duress.
Looking over at his U.S. junior champion picture right next to him.
Oh, yes.
Overseeing his own play. Those are the pictures of the juniors from last year.
Exactly. And I do believe that we're about ready to get an insight from Maurice. This very, very tense game going on here between Timur Gureyev and Daniel Naroditsky. This round 3 battle is really heating up, and even though we didn't see any draws yesterday, my money is we're going to see a fair number of decisive games in this, the 3rd round. Maurice, take it away. Tell us what you got.
I said it at the top, looking at the way the games went yesterday and then looking at the matchups today, it just felt like today would be bloodbath day. Like there's had to be some victories. And already we see Lenderman just ripping apart Ramirez in his game and just effortlessly doing so. What's funny is it's the kind of game, guys, that we'll use with our students in the future. If he gets it to the finish line, we'll say, wow, this is the kind of game we can use. Although oddly, we'll have to explain king f8, h6, and h5. And why that was justified. Still scratching my head over that one. However, this game also looks totally dominant for white, like classic It's raining pawns. Look at these 3 white pawns. However, the computer is saying, that's not that big an advantage. I mean, it's big. It's big enough that he should feel good about himself. But black can play different ways and keep it at about 0.57. That's pretty big in computer speak, but still not so big that you think what black has just lost. The move queen to b6 with a very transparent little discovered attack is possible here. And the move king to h1, the most normal and considered best move here. And now check this funky idea out. Just take on e5 with the pawn, and after bishop takes e7, rook over to e8, pawn to f6. Hello, we're coming in now, crunch or munch. The sudden Petrosian-esque rook sacrifice named after the champion Tigran Petrosian, who became champion in 1966. He used to sacrifice exchanges like this all the time so that he could get an exchange down position, but with possible defensive chances. This is what the computer is giving as a possibility for black, that now it's saying it's still 0.6, giving the nod to the rook. But we know this dark square bishop is pretty tough to break down now with all those dark square pawns, dark square control. This one's not so easy. I wouldn't feel that comfortable winning this position with the white pieces. So hidden possibilities here for Naroditsky that may save him the game. Back to you guys.
That's a nice exchange sacrifice, and really in the style of Tigran Petrosian. But queen b6, if we put that move up on the board.
I like this move because it defends the c5 knight in some of your trickier variations.
Right.
Playing bishop e7, bishop c5.
And everybody would play king h1, just as that's a very normal human move. D takes e5, bishop takes e7. One of the positions that would scare me if I were black after rook e8 is I get frightened by this dominant knight on e4, right? I agree. f6, rook e7 is a great exchange sacrifice idea that Maurice pointed out. It's a judgment call, of course, but after bishop takes c5, kind of a variation that you would see in a lot of Benoni's, and let's say knight e4, you just have to say to yourself, okay, I got this great dark square bishop that's defending my king. Queen d4 is actually a very good move. I'm thinking rook d3 is the answer, and against queen b4, I had planned queen f2. But queen d4, thanks to that bishop on a3, and that's too bad. That doesn't get the positional grip that I wanted with the great knight on e4, and then everything goes over to the king side.
So black has a little better defensive resources than you would think at first, because it looks like he's sort of getting smushed in the center.
Smushed is a good, good descriptive way. So still, Daniel, not in the terrible shape that I was fearing, but still has
But he doesn't look too happy. Daniel does not look pleased with this position.
He's very serious at the chessboard.
Yeah.
He dominated the U.S. Junior Championship, and during many of his games, he didn't look very happy. But
it looks like he just played f6, if I can see the monitor correctly.
Wow, now that's...
After f5, so let's go back.
He did not play the move queen b6, as the computer was suggesting in the lines that we were looking at. I was thinking of this move f6, by the way, in a different type of position a move or two ago. Here, I'd be a little bit fearful that there's some sacrifice against the g6 square.
I'm always worried about the piece sacrifices. Black king can be pretty exposed.
And our rover really starts to look good with the bishop c2. I'm sure Maurice has got something to say about this move f7, f6, because he got excited, I see out of the corner of my
very
eyes.
quickly.
And the moves are coming fast and furious.
Yeah.
Okay, Maurice, you jump in quick.
Well, just like you guys, I didn't like f6. F6 looks like it's burying your bishop on g7. It looks like it's compromising the pawn structure, and that's just, to my human eyes, well, the computer agrees. f6 is not a good move. It's increased white's advantage now with that move, and e takes on f6, e takes back on f6, and it's saying, you know what? This position is simply horrible for black. The pieces are bad. A move like bishop h6, it's suggesting, and it's giving a 0.99. That's a 0.99. It's like I'm almost at 1. Once I get to 1, it means you're done for sure. But a 0.99 advantage to white here, saying that this is just ugly, what's happening over here to the structure. Believe it or not, after it was given more thought, more time to think, in this position here after f5, we saw queen b6 as one move. The computer was daring enough to believe that even this move was powerful and maybe even better than queen b6, giving only a 0.38 advantage to white here, saying that the disadvantage had been minimized. Why? Because this knight is prepared to go to the e5 square, which was weakened by this pawn push. I know it seems hard to believe, though, but after f6, seems like white should have a ton of good moves here. And this trade, the computer actually liked black's chances here because it felt like there was no mating attack anymore. f6 had clogged up the position, and now we could go to the e-file. I have my doubts about this position, guys, I mean, especially this pawn burying this bishop, but it could become a little bit of a target in this position, and it's not clear what white does to improve the game. So judgment by the computer, it's going to have to show me this line. I don't doubt that it would, but then again, it does have this nice square and the ability to bring the rook to the file. Still, the move f6, and queen b6 was definitely a more solid alternative, but the move f6, not the move you wanted to play here. That's why Timur just took so quickly. Plus, he was going to lose his pawn anyway. So the trade has happened, and it's really white for choice here in this position. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Maurice. Right on with my whole approach. It's interesting with the move bishop h6 and rook e7, and you're thinking mate, mate, mate. If you don't mate, black can make a blockade. I see, maybe Ben, you have a different point of view. I see this bishop on g7. I said, that's an ugly bishop. Why don't you just keep it? It's all yours. Yeah. How about bishop e3, followed by bishop c2, and start really pounding that pawn on g6?
And just play against this bishop on g7.
Right.
That's really inactive. You
did it. I didn't. And that's a passive-looking bishop. I mean, okay, black will play, of course, moves like queen b4, rook e8, I don't know, other knight d7, knight e5. But I'm thinking, leave that bishop on the board. Bishop h6 is very concrete, very direct, because you want to play rook e7. What would your approach be if you had Timur's position?
I wish I had such a pleasant choice.
I know, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, bishop h6 is the more concrete move to try to increase your advantage quickly. And bishop e3 is just saying, the next 20 moves you can have your bishop on g7. And
you
I'm going to slowly, and different folks. Different strokes for different folks. I don't know. Personally, I like bishop h6, rook e7, rook h3. I think I can come get you. I think I can get you quick. But your way of playing it just seems like f6 was a poor move, a poor choice.
Yeah.
I really like Maurice's knight to d7 taking advantage of white playing f5, giving up the e5 square. This kind of retreat, we don't see that very often. Once you want to play knight c5 or knight e5, and once you found one of them, you don't usually go back to the other. But with white playing the move f5, ceding control of the e5 square. This is a very interesting idea to get the knight back defending the king. So probably his position wasn't as bad as he thought. It seems like by the body language, both players like white quite a bit because it just seems like white is going forward on the king side and black has very little counterplay.
Very good. All right, more tidbits from Maurice. Maurice, what do you got for us?
Yes, guys, in a game we haven't been following too closely, I'd like to take a look at the game between the youngster, the youngest player in this competition, Ashrita ESWARAN. She was playing the white pieces here, and you know how themes pop up and then they just keep popping up? It's like somehow something unusual, we think we won't see it again, and then we see it in the exact same round. Very funny incident happened here as well. I just want to go back a little bit just to show the position. We had this complex position at one point. Black played a very nice, instructive maneuver. Put the knight on a6, and after bishop to d2, put the other knight on d7, fighting for that c5 square. White played c3, and after knight to c5, a trade of knights happened. The queen went to c4, and now the veteran Camilla played bishop to g5, trading off the dark squared bishops, showing that she understands positional chess. She wants to have the superior minor piece. After this trade, the bishop took on g5, and then c takes b4, c takes b4. It was impossible to take on b4 now because of the move knight to d3. Thank you very much for the exchange. By the way, I say impossible. You could pull this off, And now this is the point that I wanted to make later. So instead of doing that, queen takes b4 and maybe fight the exchange down position, but with those pawns, the youngster played bishop to e2. And after rook f8, b3, very solid, and now f5, here come the pawns. Queen to c2, knight e4, bishop to c4, rook to a5. And in this position, I was looking at the position, I said, just quickly and instinctively, I said, kill the knight, right? This moment, you could have played the exchange sacrifice, and black's better slightly in this position, but the first move the computer gives, sack the exchange, baby. Get to Petrosian. Get kudos to Petrosian for playing this kind of chess. This position, it says minimal advantage to black. And you look at it, this a pawn is going to be a problem forever. Those rooks are not will not easily find a file to dominate. This is really the only one, but that can be shut down, it looks like, with f3 and real defense. So white would have had absolutely great chances in this position to defend and maybe even one day make this pony go home. And in fact, now the position, the computer given more time to analyze is saying, this position is fine for white. This is okay. Little advantage to black, a nod to the rook, but not by much. So she missed an exchange sacrifice here to save herself, or to at least minimize the disadvantage. And now she's stuck in this position right now when she cannot sacrifice the exchange here, because after pawn takes, she can't play queen takes pawn because she, on her very last move, put her rook on c1. So instructive theme of the exchange sacrifice. She'll no doubt hear that from her coaches later, this thematic defensive idea, but she's still in a big fight between the oldest woman in the competition and the youngest. Back to you guys.
Wonderful, wonderful battle of ideas. And for me, chess has so many challenges that I've always, struggled with, but that duel of the bishop versus the knight, which piece is better, the bishop or the knight? At first sight, I thought Camilla was doing great after bishop g5. The knight on c5 looks like a monster piece. Later in the analysis that Marie showed, the bishop on c4 can be very useful and definitely sacrifice the exchange. Outstanding battle between the youngest and the oldest competitors in the women's championship.
Yeah, in a very double-edged, Najdorf type position, we're apt to see such kind of positional exchange sacrifices for both sides. A lot of times in the Sicilian, we see black sacrificing the exchange.
Exactly.
Here, with the beautiful knight on e4,
right,
which has the c3 and the c5 squares attacking f2, boy, sacrificing for that knight takes a lot of white's problems away. Exactly. But maybe she'll get a chance later to sacrifice it. She won't miss it this time.
Yeah, rook e4 and rook e1. Yeah. Has our co-leader, Lenderman,
yeah, Lenderman's been taking some things here.
He's been capturing.
Lenderman is in an exchange up endgame.
Well, this moved right along.
How did this happen here? Let's go back a few moves.
You tell me.
So, wow, they've made a lot of moves since we last looked.
Okay.
After rook a to d8.
Right, which that was the last move we left.
Rook a to d1, defending. Queen c6, which was a move he could have played previously.
Right, which was...
Wow, now it's really difficult to defend this knight on e4.
Right.
Bishop e3.
With
what a tactical move.
Rook takes d8 check is on the agenda
Discovered attack, the bishops are attacked, but Lenderman must have had this figured out.
Right.
Rook takes d1.
Queen takes d1.
Yeah, he wants to play queen d8 check and take this guy, but that's just not going to happen.
No.
Knight takes e3.
Now you got to go queen d8 check. No choice there. Just show the...
And we trade queens.
Just show why f takes e3 would have been a poor choice.
F takes e3, bishop takes e3 check is good. I'm assuming taking on e4 is probably also good. There might be some perpetual check idea. Well...
But this looks good enough.
I could play knight f2, but I don't want to have white in that position.
My eyes hurt. All right, that was not played. Queen d8 check. Only move, by the way, queen e8. We couldn't go king f7.
Have a forced queen trade.
All right.
Unfortunately, white has a lot of pieces hanging.
It's still terrible.
All of them.
Every
white piece is attacked, and white is down a piece.
Oops.
It's not very good. Knight d6 check.
Only move.
King d7. We have to take the knight.
Yep, otherwise...
and probably black has more than one way to win, but bishop a3 is pretty nice. Bishop h3, I should say.
Bishop h3,
attacking the rook and the knight. And white played a surprising move here, knight f5. I was thinking that he had to play rook to d1, although I guess bishop e3 and bishop g4 might be quite annoying.
Because you show that's a beautiful,
quite annoying.
a thematic checkmating
Threatening
net.
the rook and threatening bishop f3 mate.
Well, show the mate, because this is the classical two bishop mate against a castle
We don't get to do this every day.
No, you don't. And when it happens, it's really sweet. And that, obviously, Alejandro could not
Right, so
allow
Alejandro
that.
played knight f5 and just went into an exchange down ending, but no compensation at all.
H4, interesting. I thought G6 to try to...
Yeah, that would be like the most normal move, I guess.
Okay, but this might be...
H4 looks good.
Like, really great, because if your rook could blast its way to the first or second rank, I mean, it's
And
game
beautiful
over.
preparation and a beautiful game by Lenderman, who we think is probably going to win before move 40.
Exactly. And we haven't seen our number one seed in tournament, pre-tournament favorite, defending champion, Gada Kamsky. He is playing against the young Ray Robson, trying to earn a reputation as well as a seat on our U.S. Olympic team. That game, when we left it, Ray, surprisingly enough, was playing in Kamsky style, establishing a central bind, trying to milk some squares. We thought that Gada had a fortress-like position, but it still felt to us that Ray was for choice. What's the current situation?
This is the current position. Seems like White has a nice position. Kamsky has his usual blockade and trying to draw. And, well, Kamsky has a big time advantage, which I think we would have guessed. Ray's doing better this round, though. 13 minutes to make 15 moves, that's not so bad. So much better than yesterday.
He's sweating cannonballs, but okay.
So much better than yesterday.
For Ray, he's super happy. And of course, on the 30-second increment, that's important. Ray will get 30 seconds for each move.
I think
move.
I won't speak for you. I'd rather have White in this position, but okay, Black is probably defending.
Yeah. And what were the last two moves, so we can just get an idea of where
so Ray was playing a3, b4, gaining space on the queen side.
Right.
And after the trade, Kamsky decided to take over the a file instead of fighting for the e file.
Which he had, and he
And Ray said, I'll take the e file. Sure.
Okay.
And now queen to f8.
Okay.
And is Ray still thinking in this position? This is the current position. So basically, Ray opened the a file and Kamsky took over. Ray took over the e file, and obviously White has a small space advantage on the queen side. Still quite an annoying pawn here on d5,
right?
Making Black sort of passive. And it's not really clear to me where Black's pieces can go. The knight on f6, bishop on d7 aren't super active, but can I really improve them, put them on better squares?
Yeah, I mean, if I were White, I would want to try to stick my knight on the c6 square, knight d4 to c6, but that I'd have to probably preface it with a bishop f5 move, trying to trade a bishop, trying to take away the defender of the c6 square. Still like Gada, let's see what Maurice has to share in this, the third round of the U.S. National Championships here from St. Louis.
Hey Yaz, I have a position on the board that's interesting. The reason I call it interesting, you'll see in a moment. This game is between one of our co-leaders, Sabina FOISOR, against four-time women's national champion, Anna Zatonsky. Now, I go back here calling it interesting. This is move 5 in the game. You're like, move 5? Dude, we're almost at the first time control. What are you doing? Well, let's just follow the game. She played the unusual knight f3, as you mentioned, Ben, and then move c5, a3, this exchange happened, and then Black castled. White then pinned this knight. Knight came out to d7, normal developing moves, and White tried to get out the game with her bishop, but queen a5 made her start to wonder if this knight might not land on the e4 square. All right, takes trade, knight takes, and now this move, rook to c1, guarding the pawn, giving away the a pawn, but maybe there's some tricks along with bishop to e7 after e4. She worried about that, so she said, you know what, let me first test that bishop to see what it wants to do. Simple move. The bishop said, well, I'm not going anywhere. Sabina played e4, attacking the knight. Now suddenly the board has exploded. Now, according to Houdini, the best move was to actually take this bishop, allowing e takes d5. That kind of line I'm sure none of us wants to play. It's not so easy to play, let me just knock off the receiving moves here, to play takes in this line and takes and then find this move. knight to f6. Very strange move, but the point is that now the knight guards any mate here, and it's trying to open up this line for a rook, and this bishop will spring to life in the game as well. That's a first-class move. That's definitely world class, all right? But she didn't see that move, and instead she played the move queen c3. Much simpler to take here, and queen takes queen. And now I believe they're in this position. Well, black should have probably would take the queen quite soon in this position. Now, why I'm bringing this up is look at the times on the clock. Already, it's only 13 moves, and black is at 17 minutes to go. So you were talking about Ray, Ben, having that many moves to play, but check this one out. She has to play 27 moves in the next 17 minutes. Yes, she does have increments. I hate increments, by the way. I think they totally changed the game. We got to get rid of those things. Increments just don't, Americans can't follow increments, and I just don't think they should be in the national championship. But that said, she will have increments, 30 seconds. What is that adding? 27, another 13 minutes to the clock, maybe 14 minutes to the clock. But nevertheless, she still has to make a lot of moves in half an hour, in 27 moves in half an hour. So you know both sides are going to feel the pressure. Sabina's not that much better at 27 minutes herself, as a matter of fact. So it's a real challenge for both players. We're going to follow this game probably in the next half hour. There's going to be some real explosions happening on the chessboard. Back to you guys.
Well, thank you for that, Maurice. Before the competition and during one of her interviews, Anna said that she came to the game, came to the tournament, pardon me, a little bit rusty, hadn't been playing much chess, and usually when you're getting into time trouble, this bad time trouble this early, it's an example of that rustiness. What we're going to do now is go to our second puzzle of the day, from the famous 1964 U.S. Championship, where Bobby Fischer swept the field, a clean sweep, 11-0, where hopefully get you a better puzzle. It will be the game between Bobby Fischer and Byrne and Bobby Fischer to play and to win. See if you can solve it. Thereafter, we'll take a break. It'll be a little bit longer break, 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you. Chess Championships here in St. Louis, the chess capital of the United States. First of all, thank you everybody for all your comments and suggestions. We do have one of our sponsors, chess.com, giving away diamond memberships to the best questions and comments. I've looked them over. Thank you. I agree with many of yourselves who are explaining that this is a real battle, and the championships are really heating up. We'd like to go right away to that graphic of the game between Robert Byrne and Bobby Fischer in his epic 11-0 sweep 50 years ago, and Maurice is going to take us step by step through the action of how Bobby Fischer defeated Robert Byrne.
Well, there we saw that move on the board, a truly scintillating, bone-crunching move. Fischer played knight takes f2, bam. This kind of move is fantastic because it just rips apart the king's defense. Now, Byrne thought there would be no problem, you know, okay, you got a couple of pawns for the exchange. I'm going to shift my queen over, you know, go ahead, take your rook, what do you got to say? And Fischer said, actually, no. I'm going to take this bishop. And that was truly the all-star move. This move, actually, when you play it, a lot of computers, when they first see it, they go, what? That's not the best. And then they go, oh, the guy's a genius. It is the best move because after you get this piece back, then this move, another sacrifice, d4, undermining this knight's protection of this knight. Look at that rook and bishop, so you must trade. And then the next move, queen to d7, bishop to b7 check, forcing the king back. And now queen to d7. And this position, by the way, I should point out this line. If you put the king back directly, then you run into the simple bishop takes d4 check. And if you try to get that piece back, oops, rook check. And now rook takes rook runs into queen takes queen. And if you move your king away, then we start with queen takes queen and then pick off this rook in the corner. So white would be down an exchange and a pawn, definitely losing against the likes of Bobby Fischer. So against bishop b7 check, white had to play king to f1. And now the winning move, queen to d7. Now, it's a funny story here because the position is actually completely lost. Robert Byrne looked at this position, thought about it for some time, and resigned. Meantime, in the commentating room, the grandmasters were saying, oh, this is bad for black. Black's losing. And when they saw Donald Byrne come in the room, they were like, what happened? Did you win? And he's like, no, dude, I lost. What are you talking about? And they couldn't understand it. We're looking at the variation with queen f2, but this line doesn't work to queen check. And after the king moves in the corner, the spectacular shot, rook to e1 check. And this move is just brutal because if the queen captures, obviously the queen is busy stopping mate on g2. And if the rook captures, well, the rook has to capture, then bishop takes d4, dragging the queen away for that juicy mate on g2. So a spectacular victory by Fischer, one that is remembered by all of us in the annals of chess. Beautiful, beautiful game. One of those games, too, that when everybody saw it, they're like, this guy, he's the real deal. And, of course, he went on a few years later, 8 years later, to be exact, to become the world champion. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Maurice. And that was a definite result. It had a big impression. That game left a big impression on me. And I spent a lot of time trying to dissect and understand that game. Speaking of results, we do have two results in the Open. We have two draws. Ben, Ray Robson, Gadakamsky ended in draws, and Onishuk and Akobian ended in draws.
Yeah, we saw repetitions in both positions. Let's go back a few moves in the Robson game. So what happened was we were explaining how white was controlling one file and black was controlling the other. Well, Gada kept fighting for the file, and he just repeated the moves. Rook e8, rook a8, and white didn't want to trade rooks because that would lead closer to a draw, so white was fighting for the file, and Gada's like, no. And eventually, after repetition, with Ray having less time on the clock, very understandable, black having a slightly worse position probably, And yeah, Ray came in the studio and he's like, yeah, I thought I was better, but I don't really see any way to improve my position.
I
So
see.
another sort of solid draw for Gada and just a repetition.
By the way, defending champion Gada Kamsky was strong in last year's U.S. Championship out of the box with 4 wins after 4 rounds. Here starting with 3 draws, not impeccable draws, mind you, but 3 draws. That title is up for stakes, and then the other result was between Akobian and Onishuk. And how did that?
That's right. They
game
also had a
ended?
repetition, but theirs was a diagonal repetition.
Oh my.
So let's go back a few moves. Yeah, it was a pretty equal game throughout. White had the 2 bishops, but look how solid Black's position is. And what ended up happening was bishop attacked the queen, the bishop came back to the center, and now Black is threatening knight to b3. That wouldn't be any fun for White. So White played queen to d1, bishop to b3, and they had this kind of repetition with Black always threatening knight b3 and White preventing it with queen d1. And okay, very solid position for Black, the 2 bishops for White, but it looks like quite a nice position. So a solid draw from both players. Probably both players satisfied with the result.
All right. And in the game between our young phenom and the veteran of the Women's Championship, Kamila Baganskaita, that game has gotten really
It's totally
wild.
blown up.
What has happened? We left it a few moves ago expecting some kinds of exchange sacrifices to occur. That did not happen.
Right, we thought White at some point would sacrifice the exchange and take away most of Black's winning chances, but instead, White had other ideas. Jennifer would be proud. The rover is coming.
Rook up and over.
Rook e3. The rook went to a1 behind the passed pawn. Black doesn't want that pawn to advance.
Queen
But
D.
now the Black queen isn't on the king side anymore, so White had a very interesting idea of dislodging this knight on e4 by playing king h1.
Wow.
And then the super aggressive g4.
Wow. Brought back a flash for me from the 1992 match between, the rematch, I want to say, between Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky, where Bobby played this move g4, undermining a knight. And
Black's sort of
nice.
on her heels now. We got to defend against the passed a pawn and against the king side attack.
Absolutely.
Maybe this knight's not as strong as we thought it was. Maybe it's going to get attacked.
Exactly.
So rook went back to c7 to come defend on the king side and also open up the line for the Black queen.
Right.
gf, gf, and rook f3, like putting tremendous pressure on the advanced placement of Black's pieces.
Right.
Rook f8, rook g1 check. Black trades rooks.
Right.
And now bishop to d3.
Undermining the knight.
Every single white piece attacking the Black structure here. And also, if somehow we trade a lot of pieces over here, the king and pawn ending's not looking good for Black. So White has an attack on the king side, White's undermining Black's center, and White has that passed a pawn just in case.
Wow. Looks tough for Kamila. Does the move queen d4? Is that a move that Kamila might essay, or she has?
It seems like she has to defend the knight on e4 somehow. Also,
Absolutely.
Kamila having a time disadvantage, which we've seen before in this tournament. Let's see if we have an update on any of the moves.
I see I see, in fact, only 2.5 minutes for Kamila versus 36 minutes for ESWARAN. And the young debutante.
You know, I'm worried
first
queen
time.
d4 might go into one of these king and pawn endings that's not very good.
Right.
If I capture this knight, if you capture with a pawn,
Which was
I'm
my intent.
very worried about queen c7 check.
Oops.
I'm scared.
With good reason.
I don't know if it's good, but I'll take white.
King g8, and there's a quick checkmate.
We have rook g3 check and queen g7 mate.
Oh my.
I hate when that happens.
Doh.
So yeah, and the other problem with queen d4 is if you take with the queen, are we in time to stop this a pawn? And even if we are, does it matter?
No, I don't think it does.
Wow.
5
Passed
king,
a pawn is just winning for
a6
white.
king, a7 king.
So if queen d4 is not possible, very logical move, with very little time on the clock, this seems like a very difficult position for Kamila.
And it looks like the position, in fact, is collapsing for Kamila. And what a shocker in round 3. Maurice, I'm sure you have some more insights you'd like to share in this round.
Indeed, Yaz, that particular position has caught my eye as well, so I decided to explore it. Let's just bring it up right here. And in this position we had back here, black was just fine. Black was doing okay, right? And so black started wavering, though. Black started making some moves. We saw this position, rook takes e4 was possible, but white played rook to c1 and then couldn't do it. So they played a few more moves, and black tried to be very solid. And then she decided nothing was happening on this side, so let's switch sides. White played king h1 and now put the queen on b6. Also not a bad decision. However, g4, very radical, very interesting, and might have been wrong, in fact, because black had a crazy exchange sacrifice. And maybe she couldn't have calculated to the finish because this line is absolutely not clear. Obviously, queen takes, runs into knight takes f2 check, and there goes a rook. So that line would not have worked. However, here, rook takes c4, b takes is playable, but now black could play this move, pawn up to b3, and again, white is under tremendous pressure. Her position is very stretched. She could play queen to b2, blocking everything, and now the move queen d4, offering a trade of queens. This would have been extremely dangerous for white in this position. I looked at the endgame going down another 15 moves. It's razor sharp because queen takes, pawn takes, now you drop the rook back, and after pawn up, then the rook here, and the lines go d3 with a trade, and now black pushes, and you can't stop this pawn, so you have to sacrifice for it, and the lines go, you try to run this knight, well, let's do it, pawn up, this knight comes back, this can stop you here, and then trade on this side, or I think you could have traded earlier, and now it's a question if this king can get over versus this king mopping up these pawns. So very deep, even now Houdini's saying, yeah, it's a piece up, but that a pawn is really, really strong, holding down that knight. So that was a chance for Camilla, but maybe she couldn't calculate all of it, and even then she wouldn't have had a winning position. So that's why she chose the lines that you guys started looking at, and now she's in this position, jumping to the current position, and the youngster, having dodged that bullet of the rook takes c4, computer saying, we really like white. 0.73 right now, definitely game turnaround, and it looks as though white is clearly in the driver's seat. King is fine, trades might happen, and that a pawn, we talked about it a long time ago, she has that strong a pawn on the board, and it's up to her now to find out what to do with this position. It seems as though a move has been played, so let's see if we can bring the position up to date. The move rook f6, just giving away the pawn. Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just a free pawn, and the young 13-year-old would have a huge advantage in that position, and she's done it. She has taken the pawn. She is clearly now dominating in this position with a winning endgame after queen takes e4. Definitely in trouble is black in this position, and also in time trouble, a huge edge, 34 minutes to only 1:46 for black. So given this position, you know, you guys and myself, we're thinking this is over. Let's see if the 13-year-old can pull off a second victory here at the U.S. Women's Championship. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Maurice. I just wanted to say that ESWARAN was invited to the competition. It's a big, big, big test. We, as the organizers at the St. Louis Chess Club and Scholastic Center, were a little bit worried throwing this young Bambi to these grizzled veterans who wanted the new blood. And guess what? The new blood said, I didn't get that memo. I'm playing, and if she wins this game, she'll have won 2 out of 3, and clearly a force, not only in this tournament, but in the future U.S. championships. Very impressive.
One thing that's always worrisome about inviting a young, up-and-coming, talented player. They're not used to strong player, strong player, strong player, strong player. When you play in Swisses, if you lose a game, your next opponent's a little bit easier. So if you lose 1 or 2 or 3 games in a row, you can really start feeling it. But she won her first game in a marathon game.
Right.
She lost a difficult game to Irina, and here she's back on the horse, and wow, she's really playing well, and looks like she's on her way to her second victory. That would be amazing.
Fantastic. Can we just check in with the game of our tournament co-leader in the open section, Mr. Lenderman. We've praised his opening preparation throughout.
Alejandro made it to the time control.
Very
An achievement.
Good. And how did he get here? When we had left it, Black was breaking through with
let's
the
go
move
back a few moves.
H5, H4. We were back
So
here.
after H4, White played the simple King G2.
All right.
Stopping the Black Rook from infiltrating.
Got it. Trade.
And this looks like it should be a pretty easy win for Black.
Yep.
H6. And this just seems like the technical phase of the game. Some players might even resign here with White, but okay, why resign before move 40 when you don't have to?
Exactly.
B6, a little strange move, but okay, very safe.
All right.
Making sure we don't lose any of our pawns. Relocates his bishop.
Very sensibly. Take.
White having 4 isolated pawns and down in exchange. And now he's going to defend his g-pawn with his king so his rook can start moving around.
Exactly. So
And
King
this is move
G7.
41.
King G7, and then the rook is released to go over back to the wide open frontier that we see on the queen side. I don't know what Houdini says, but I'm thinking this is +3.
Yeah, because if White tries to get some counterplay, this doesn't work because bishop f2 is just is lights out.
Let's just go to Maurice for a quick moment to see whether our guess about Houdini is accurate or not. Maurice, can you tell us?
Oh, absolutely, yes. This position is definitely busted for Black. It's for White. It's just a question of time there. It's probably taking Alex longer than he wanted. That is Lenderman, longer than he wanted for it to take. He probably wants his guy to resign. You know, I'm winning. Come on now. You're spoiling my miniature. Well, nobody's going to do you any favors. I remember Grandmaster Crush, when she came in, it had taken her a lot of moves after she won an exchange to finally win the game. And she felt badly about it. She said, it took me so long. And Lenderman himself said, actually, you know, I looked at it with the computer. It said that you played very strong moves. Your advantage was always going up and up and up. So you didn't have to worry that it actually took 60 moves, although you won an exchange 30 moves ago. So that lesson is planted firmly in his mind from 2 rounds ago. So no doubt he's sitting there thinking, I don't care how long it takes. I'm going to win this game, and it's going to be a point, and I'll be the leader in the competition. He just has to relax and let it happen. Now, there's another position, though, I'm really fascinated by because I don't get it. Victoria Ni against Alyssa Melikina, and in this position, in terrific time pressure with only 2 minutes on the clock, is this a glitch? Piece under attack, the knight is. Why not sack it? Knight takes on e5, but queen takes e5 is just a piece. And so Houdini is saying, what gives? You just handed me a piece for no reason. So the sacrifice just looks like a blunder unless you guys see some miracle that I don't. Houdini doesn't see it, so I'll just give you that hint. Don't even bother looking. It's just a piece. But what's the rationale behind giving up this piece in this position? I really don't know. It looks as if it was just a time pressure blunder. So Alyssa Melikina, with the right moves, should be getting off the Schneid from 0 points, which she's lost 2 games, and winning her first game at the U.S. Women's Championship. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Maurice. What can I say but time trouble makes fools out of everyone.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have that, like some mental jolt that you've got to move. And maybe in that particular position, she's dreaming of some fantasy bishop c4 check where the black king is forced on the diagonal of the bishop on b2. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be there, and Victoria's sacrifice should not work out. Ben, you have other games that you have under your screen.
There's a lot of interest here. I want to go back to the Ehrenberg game.
All right. That's actually
with
a top
Sam
game
Shanklin.
with Sam Shanklin.
And it seemed like a
Sergei
really
Ehrenberg.
heavyweight positional struggle in Rui Lopez.
Absolutely.
And they've been sort of equal the whole game, trading, equalizing, but I sort of like Black's position a little bit now because Black has a nicer rook than White, and the B pawn is a little bit weaker than the C pawn. So Sam having his usual time advantage due to his good preparation, and it seems like, although I didn't like the opening choice because I thought Ehrenberg would be his type of position, it seems like Sam's played the game very nicely, and he's the one who's probably trying to press for a win.
Very nice. And who is to play in the position that we have?
Black just played knight to f4. And you were explaining earlier that Black would try to somehow get one or both of his knights to d3. May have to play f6 first to defend his e-pawn.
As a preparatory move.
Then the b2 pawn is even weaker.
Absolutely. No, if Sam can get in the moves f7, f6, knight, d7, c5, the graphic that you've got on the board, he's in the driver's seat. I mean, that's a dream position because actually the bishop on c2 is a passive piece.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
that
good.
pawn on e4.
It looks like all of White's pieces are passive.
Exactly. So Sergey in trouble in this game and needs to come up with a good equalizing plan. And maybe at some point he may have to go with a crazed rook a7, rook takes b2, rook takes d7 kind of idea, probably prefaced first with g2, g3. But I can easily see this game turning like that, and then you just don't get out with White.
Ehrenberg defended really nicely yesterday in a much worse position against Onishuk, so he'll have to do it again. But if you're asked to do it every round, that's no fun at all.
It'll catch up with
Defending
you,
against
sure.
Robson, defending against Shankland was worse positions. You can't always draw all of them. And yeah, he's going to have to, it's his first U.S. championship. He doesn't know the other players as well. And, well, he's finding out that there's some tough players in this tournament.
And we do have some moves, so if you could bring us up to date on what the players have played. And again, I do see that big time differential, 4 minutes versus 20 minutes for Sam.
I think he played G3.
Yeah, you got to get rid of that knight. That knight on f4 is just
And Sam has just played knight e6.
very nicely dropping back. And by the
The
way,
D3 square, we got the D4 square, we got a
Right.
lot of squares.
got a lot of squares. And here I'm thinking that Sergey's going to need a move like, well, once again, rook a2 to a7, hoping that you'll go rook takes b2, rook takes c2, and maybe I can swindle a draw out of that. But definitely Sam in good shape in this round.
Yeah, and the time situation better than I thought for Sam, 20 minutes to 5. So time trouble once again, difficult. You can see Ehrenberg not very comfortable with body language. Like
Yes.
5 minutes, I got to defend this position.
Exactly.
And if I play perfectly, then I'll draw.
Right,
Yay.
yay. And other games, take us around with the Ladies' Championship. We have left Arena.
The battle of the arenas.
Who is the best arena?
In the arena.
In the arena.
Wait a second. If I'm looking at this correctly, which is always possible, they've been repeating quite a bit. So let me go back a few moves here. Rook e8, rook e2, rook e8, rook e2.
Oh my.
That looks like a repetition.
So you're saying, and a draw has been
Looks
agreed,
like they
by
have
the
agreed
way.
to a draw, as we see on the monitor. So
Oh,
that was good
my.
timing.
So Rex is feeling a little bit better because, as we know, yesterday he did something quite extraordinary. He extended a $64,000 bonus to any lady in the women's championship that went clean sweep. Arena was a 2-0 starter. She can't win the bonus with a draw. And only Sabine FOISOR. Shall we take a look at Sabine?
You know, I was having private talks with Rex yesterday, and he told me there was actually a Fisher Prize for the commentary team if somebody did commentary all 11 rounds, and Jennifer's out. And I missed the first couple rounds, so it's just left to you and Maurice are the only two left.
Well, if Maurice gets kneecapped, don't look at me. Don't look at me. I had nothing to do with it. Ben, how would you like to make $32,000? Sorry, Maurice. Don't worry. Don't worry. Let's go to Maurice to get his thoughts on that one.
Yes, I got people. Watch your back, son. I want to jump to a game from the Women's Championship that we thought would be very easy, and now it's turned into a little bit craziness. In this position, after the sacrifice, we saw Ni in big time trouble decide to sacrifice her knight. After queen takes, she played this extraordinary, extravagant move, f4, attacking the queen. Now it was up to Black to find the right defense, or at least the right approach, and it turns out that she could have just simply grabbed another pawn. Let me just turn this off so I can analyze. Queen takes on e4. This move is pure greed. This is saying, show me what you got. Queen takes e4, and the main lines, some funky lines here, but bishops to c4 check, and if you put the king in the corner, which is actually suggested is a decent move, then rook to e2 suddenly. And your queen is in trouble. There's threats along this long diagonal that you might get mated. We saw this kind of mate happen in another position, the Lenderman position you guys were analyzing. This diagonal suddenly gets funky. So it turns out bishop to c4 check, you have to be willing to pin yourself with knight to d5. And in this line, anything like rook to e2, the queen can just go forward, keeping protection with no worries here, threats on this pawn. I say no worries, it's easy for me to say. I'm not the one defending this position. But turns out that black would be not only fine, but giving an advantage is Houdini of 3.94. Big time, almost 4 points, saying white's attack is bogus. I don't believe it, it's not gonna work. However, after f4, Melikina, in a little bit of time pressure herself, played the move queen to d6. This is still better for her. It's not the same 3+, I'm up a piece kind of thing. White does have the move, bishop to c4 check, attacking, and after king g7, the computer says white really doesn't have anything, even here. So she's still winning is black, but not the same degree that she could have been winning. And now, in some pressure, she's going to have to deal with the position. Let's see if we can get to the current position on the board. What has happened is the move e5 chasing her queen back. The queen has dropped back to d7. Again, black is still winning here up a piece, but little bit of uncertainty in this game. We thought it was just going to be easy. Anything but. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Maurice, for that. Boy, I didn't like that move e5, which kind of killed the bishop on b2 a bit.
But it's never easy in chess. It's never easy.
No, I would have tried my best to keep that in reserve. You've got something up on your screen here.
Yeah,
Ben,
I think
what
we have
are
a
you
result.
looking at?
It looks like Molnar was able to hold the draw against Josh Friedel. We thought that white had a very nice position.
After that f5, let's go back and see.
But it looks like he held on. Yeah, let's go back a few moves.
Right.
They made many moves. Back even further.
Even further. So
yeah, so that knight took on a6, and we thought this was a very healthy advantage for white.
All right, and how did the game proceed?
And now the rook on a1 is pretty devastating on the a file.
But that's an ugly pawn structure for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pawn structure chess.
Ooh.
Rook c5. White really wants to win those pawns on the a file, and you got to like the white position. White has to have a nice plus here because the a pawns are just weaker than the b pawns. c6 pawn is no great shakes either.
No kidding. Mac is in
trouble.
trouble.
But Mac kept trading and trading and trading and trading. And
somehow
it looked like it was nice for white, but somehow he was able to get most of white's pawns off the board.
Wow.
White's a pawn ahead, but not easy. It's never easy. Black has a nice king. Black has active rook and knight, and he was able to take just enough pawns off to draw the game.
Well, this is the thing. Even when you get an advantage in chess, at this level of the U.S. Championships, the players are finding every resource. And he got himself into a knight ending. He's going to win back the pawn on c5.
And here I think the players agreed to a draw.
And after knight takes c5, it would be 3 versus 3. And the players, both grandmasters, recognize
very nice
this
defense from Molnar because neither one of us liked his position very much.
Impressive indeed. Wow.
And a good first U.S. championship, 3 draws.
Incredible. I hadn't met Mac before the event, but he's really impressing me. He's acquitting himself very well. Usually your first U.S. championship, I know I was very nervous in my first U.S. championships, and he's doing very well. Other games, Ben, what else have you got for us?
So let's see, we have a draw in the Robson-Komsky game. We have a draw in this game. Now let's go back to the Garayev game because they got into an end game, and that bishop on f8 is a bit suspicious.
Well, that
shall we say?
Well, that was what we were both thinking. That now, thanks to the pawn on f6, the bishop on g7 was going to be septic for the rest of the game.
Yeah, what happened was he did play the bishop e3 move that you were suggesting,
and then
instead of trading the bishops.
And then came rook e8. So Timur has a very nice, that's also doubles up some pawns too,
Yeah, so
doesn't it?
basically Timur wants to trade off these other pieces and leave black with this bishop on g7. That's not very nice for black. Knight e4. one good tactic deserves another. A very sharp move from young Naroditsky.
All right.
And still trading pieces.
Trade.
And I thought maybe black was becoming okay here, but that bishop on g7 just never really got to a good square. And now, rook c6 is a very annoying move, attacking everything.
Right.
Rook e8 attacking the bishop. He gets a pawn, but...
Rook c6.
Yeah, it's just a very bad position for black. He's just suffering because of the s6 move.
And another actual problem for black in this position is the pawn on a5 is also vulnerable to a bishop e1 type of move in the not too distant future.
Now, we saw Gareev have a very nice endgame advantage yesterday against Lenderman.
Shocking,
probably even nicer than this, and wasn't able to win somehow.
Shocking that he didn't win.
But two in a row, I don't think he'll mess up. Two endings in a row. And unfortunately for black, he traded off the bishop that wasn't the f8 bishop.
All right.
Activating his rook. And this is the current position. This seems...
a dream position for white.
Yep.
All of his pawns are beautifully on light squares, with the exception of the h4. Black's structure is terrible, and again,
bishop e3 trying to kill the bishop even more on f8.
Just to keep it under wraps. I'm seeing rook b6, b5, bishop e3 to b6, and I'm seeing that a5 pawn fall for nothing. Then I'm going to have Timur will have two connected pass pawns, and should be winning. Yeah.
Agreed.
We're going to cut to a commercial break and inform you about a very special tournament that's coming up later this year in the U.S. $1 million up for grabs in the $1 million chess tournament. Let's see the commercial.
Welcome to the world of the surreal. You take the blue pawn and return to the comfortable world of chess tournaments as you know them. You take the red pawn and I'll show you a chess event beyond your wildest imagination.
In the chess capital, St. Louis. We're at the Scholastic St. Louis Chess and we have had a number of results already, but first I'm going to throw it to Maurice and ask him to share his thoughts. Maurice.
Well, Yaz, sorry about that technical difficulty. We'll be playing that that interview, excuse me, quite soon. However, there is some big news to report in this championship. Remember this position, guys? We were saying, yeah, it's going to be easy. It's going to be no problem. I look at Houdini's evaluation. It says +3 for black. White is done. White is toast. So I go, okay, let me make some moves. And as I'm making the moves to see what should happen, all of a sudden, Houdini is repeating the position. It cannot find a way to make progress in this position. There's no specific way, and I'm defending. I'm just making moves. It cannot find a way in. If you try to win, for example, in this position, you play the move bishop to c6. Houdini's next suggestion is rook to h8. And after knight h4, it says put the rook on b8. And then after bishop to b5, it said, well, let's try to get in on d8. And after knight f3, it's like, what am I supposed to do? So I don't understand exactly what's happening here or why there's no easy way in. I mean, you would think that some kind of pawn push should get the job done, or maybe king, but it's like the king can't come in before the rook does. I can't believe this, but it's a weird situation that's happened here where the computer can't find a win, even though it's saying that the position is obviously clearly winning. On another development, in another game, we see this one, ESWARAN now has a queen ending, very attractive queen ending, an exposed king. She just has to make sure there are no perpetual checks, and she can continue with moves like check and a move like h4 because no trades are really possible here. A move like queen check would run into queen g5 check with huge problems. Obviously, the outside pass pawn would win the game. So again, we see on different boards, good endings, look like they're winning, real challenges for Lenderman in a position that we really surprised by because he could have played differently and his rook d8 just going for the exchange may not have been the most accurate. But now he has to figure out how does he win a position that looked like he should have won a long time ago. Back to you guys.
It's one of those situations where your opponent manages to create some kind of strange fortress. It's like a light square complex versus a dark square complex. And Alejandro is getting more chances to save the game than he deserves.
It's never easy, yes, sir.
It
seems easy. The computer might say it's easy, but it's never easy.
I did want to say to everybody that interview with Rex Singfield will be aired. We've got it taped. It was a great interview. Rex really shows, we promise you, we will get it on. But in the meanwhile, as we get that set up, we do have our guest that's just coming into our studio. We'll be interviewing him shortly. Ben, if you could just bring up that game of Victoria's once again, because that was a game that I thought was going to be decided very shortly, and I think we're going to see a decisive result in this game as well.
Yeah, I thought actually White had resigned here. Isn't White down a queen for a piece?
All right, how did we get this position?
Yeah, let's go back a few moves.
If it's already...
So after the piece sacrifice...
Followed by f4.
And you didn't like the move
I
e5
didn't like
because
the move
we're
e5.
We're really blocking out our chances here with this bishop on the diagonal.
Mm-hmm.
Queen d7, bishop g2, knight d5.
Oh
that
my.
queen's not very healthy here on b6.
Oh my.
And
Victoria.
e6. Every move is sacrifice. And then rook takes c6.
But there is that check.
Oh, queen e3 check. I hate when that happens.
Dope.
Probably didn't see that in time trouble. And now the queen
is captured. And
bishop
then
to c3 and
that ends the game.
Yeah, and I think here she resigned.
I see. So a win for black, a nice victory. Victoria will be asking herself where she went wrong. In the meanwhile, we do have our guest, Grandmaster Josh Friedel, in our studio to explain his game today with Maurice.
Thanks, Yaz. And I've been told that it's Friedel. Friedel, once and for all. We'll get that right from this moment on. So we're with Grandmaster Josh Friedel, now living in Milwaukee, originally from New Hampshire. Yep. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you started off the championship a bit rough.
Yeah, it was like, I basically had half out of 2 in the first 2 games, and I think I should have had a minimum of 1.5. So, given my position, so it was a bit disappointing. So I had to come back today and try not to lose my mind.
Oh, indeed, this is a tough championship, one of the strongest ever. All GMs in the field, pretty tough. So tell us about the game today. It ended in a draw after what seemed like a very long and interesting fight.
Yeah, it was a very interesting game. I decided to play a fairly aggressive line today. Well, I should say actually it's kind of like a fake out because I play knight f3, c4 like I'm going to play quietly, but then this particular line can get extremely sharp. And Mac, I think very wisely, decided not to go for the really insane complications, which I had prepared and he probably didn't, and played a little bit safer. He was a bit worse, but at least he's not getting checkmated out of the opening or anything like this. So I thought that I held an edge throughout. I thought at some point maybe I was at least much better, maybe even winning, but I wasn't totally sure. However, at the end he found a very nice defense. He played very precisely and I wasn't able to find a win. So whether I ever had anything significant or not, I'm not sure. But it seemed like it was a fairly well-played game.
Now, this is Mac's first championship. You told me this is your 6th. I was guessing like 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, I
but
know, it's
6,
hard to
you're a real
believe.
veteran of this tournament.
More or less, yeah.
How do you like the conditions here playing in St. Louis?
No complaints here, that's for sure. I mean, I've only played in St. Louis U.S. Championship once, but it's, you know, one of the best sites to play chess, and I've always enjoyed my time here.
So you started off a little bit slow.
Yeah.
What do you do to get rolling in this? You know, you said you don't want to go crazy, but at some point you want to start winning some games.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I actually planned to go crazy today, but then he played a little safer. I mean, honestly, like, I don't think it's about I need to go crazy to win games necessarily. I think that the main problem in my first 2 games was that I, you know, misplayed a position which was, okay, in the first game very slightly better, and then in the second game completely winning, but not very complicated, not an easy win. So I think a lot of it comes down to calculating a little bit more cleanly, and when I do have my chances, playing more precise chess, because I think that the main issue I've had so far is that when I have had my opportunities, I just have played imprecisely and let my opponents get back in. And needless to say, in a tournament like this, you don't get too many opportunities at all. So I have to cash in a little bit better when I get them. So.
Indeed. Well, we wish you the best of luck in the rest
Thank
of the
you very
tournament. Grandmaster Josh Friedel, now living in Milwaukee, and still fighting, still in there, only a half a point off of even. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Maurice. In the women's championships, we went into the round with 2 players at perfect 2-0 starts. Irina Krush has drawn her round 3 game, so she is at 2.5 points. And Sabina
Yeah, she doesn't
FOISOR,
look like she's doing very well.
also at +2 at the start of the round, is in trouble.
Not looking good for white in this position.
Against Anna Zatonsky, 4-time winner Anna Zatonsky. If Anna were to win this game, by the way, she would be tied with Irina Krush. So take us back a few moves, Ben. And where did it all go wrong?
Very sharp position early on, even before this. This is where Maurice was talking that
H takes G5 variations.
And here, instead of recapturing on G5, she played the intermezzo to take on D4, trying to be a pawn ahead. I was wondering if white could try to get away with rook takes C8, but that seemed incredibly dangerous with
the king still
all the
on
pieces
center.
still not developed. You'd have 2 pieces for a rook, but black would have 1 or 2 pawns and an initiative.
Right.
And I think she gave it a long think here.
All right.
And she decided against it and played rook to C7 instead, activating her rook.
Looks very sensible.
Yeah, and then activated her bishop. So
again,
white's a pawn or 2 down, but has a nice attack.
And she'll get one of them back.
Yep.
King D2.
D2, A6. And Anna was able to get out of this. Bishop takes knight, not exactly what she wanted to play, helping black develop her pieces.
No, I don't give a high credence to that move. Bishop takes E7. That really that's a very helpful trade.
Yeah, black's having trouble getting her pieces out.
Right. So you normally speaking, you wouldn't make that swap. You drop back with the bishop, take a pawn on your next turn, and just hope that your rook on the 7th is really good.
Yeah.
After bishop takes D7, how did the game proceed?
So she got
1 pawn back.
Got a pawn back, and now black's up 1 pawn, but black doesn't really have any issues anymore.
And
Black just has a nice position.
Exactly.
So rook takes B7, runs into bishop C6. That doesn't look like a lot of fun.
No. Knight H4.
Trying to infiltrate somewhere.
And the B pawn is still hanging, of course.
Rook to C8. And this just seems like a lot of fun for black.
Anna just consolidated her advantage and better minor piece.
And the big difference between Anna and Irina Krush and them basically fighting for every U.S. Women's Championship is I don't see Krush having so many time trouble issues. And even here where we both really like black's position, still 5 minutes left. There's always this issue with her.
Right.
So sometimes, if it happens every game, sometimes bad things can happen, but probably not here.
Yeah.
This is just too nice. King F8, a very nice move, avoiding all the forks.
Right.
Knight E7 check was a threat. King F7 walked into Knight D6. Getting out of the pin, and it's just technique. Black's a pawn up and has a very nice position.
Exactly.
And she basically has to make the time control.
Anna Zatonsky, that is. Ooh, h4 walks into, oh, that's a surprise move. All right, couple surprising moves here by both players.
And this seems quite nice for black.
Right, with the threat of bishop e8, which would have forced the trade of a lot of pieces.
On the king side.
And it looks like Anna is well on her way to victory in this game. We have another guest in our studio, making his debut in this year's U.S. Championship is Sergey. He is with Maurice. Maurice.
Thanks, Yaz. With Grandmaster Sergey Ehrenberg, out of Russia, born in Russia, then moved to Israel when you were young, and now in the United States since 2007, I believe.
That's correct.
And now working at Capital One in Richmond, Virginia.
That's correct.
Welcome to the show and welcome to the championship. You're a first-timer here in the U.S. Championship. What has the experience been like so far?
I mean, so far it has been disappointing. Of course, in the first game I could have done better. I probably shouldn't have blundered like 5 times in one game. It proved to be bad. In the second game, I actually saved a very tough position. Out of the opening, I got very bad position.
This was against Onishchuk, right?
Onishchuk, yeah, but I think I played well in the middle game and was able to save this very tough game. And today I thought that I got a slight advantage out of the opening, but my opponent played really well, and he was able to make a draw.
To neutralize your advantage. Sam Shanklin, that is. Very tough game. What about the conditions? What is it like to play in a championship like this? Have you seen the kind of conditions here in other places that you've seen here?
I mean, the conditions are great. It's probably my, from the conditions point of view, this tournament is best by far among those that I have participated. So yeah, so far so good. I just need to improve my level of playing.
So how do you do that? In the middle of a tournament, you feel like something's a little bit off. You're trying to play solidly. What do you do to get to that next level? Like you played 3 rounds already. What do you do for round 4? I
mean, other than first game, it hasn't been that terrible. If I made 3 draws, it wouldn't be that bad. Like almost everyone in the tournament makes draws. But yeah, I'll try to win, and of course it's gonna be tough against Kamsky with the black pieces, but maybe I should hold and then try to win with the white pieces. So.
Well, you know, Kamsky hasn't won any games either, so it's not that easy to play.
Yeah, so hopefully he'll give me some chances to, to win.
But you still didn't answer the question. What do you do when you're in the middle of a tournament to try to change the tide?
I mean, I try not to think about, my situation, how many points I have, or like how many games left. I just, play game by game and try to improve. So I think in the last 2 games I played reasonably well. I just need to get positions that I like and not to get into time trouble. And yeah, I believe I can do better.
We're sure you can. Well, we wish you the best of luck in the rest of the tournament.
Thank you.
Grandmaster Sergey Ehrenberg in his first U.S. Championship, fighting his way, trying to claw back into the leaders board. Back to you, Yaz and Ben.
Thank you, Maurice. I was sure you were about to say Jen there for a moment. As we know, Jennifer Shahadi, our normal host, yes, don't worry, we won't send you to Paul Mitchell's, has allergies today. Hopefully she'll be back with us tomorrow. Tomorrow, by the way, is a free day for the ladies in the ladies competition, Mother's Day. But the men will be fighting. In the meanwhile, you have on your screen also a very important game. Help me out here, Ben.
Tatev Abrahamyan.
Tatev Abrahamyan, thank you, versus Katie Nemkova.
Nemkova playing in her first U.S. Women's Championship as well, just like Sergey.
Right. We were looking at her game from yesterday where she gave a draw in a position we would say, look, you just got to keep playing. Even if you don't see an immediate win, you just have to keep pressure on your opponent. What is happening in this round?
Well, I didn't like what Tatev did in the opening. This is the game where she played d5 very early on.
That's right.
And we didn't like that, blocking her bishop. They got a very double-edged middle game, and then a mutual time trouble. It looks like Tatev not only won a pawn, but an important pawn at that. So, but now it looks like she's giving back the pawn to get it. But yeah, now this is really tricky. So I thought it was really good for white, but now I'm not so sure.
Just to see where we were at. So we were at this point a few moves back.
Okay.
And how did the game continue
And
from?
both players in terrific time trouble.
Right.
There was a trade.
All right.
And then queen c3.
Eyeballing the
tremendous pressure on all these pawns.
Right.
And yeah, white's king looks pretty safe with the bishop on f1. So if white can start taking some queenside pawns, she should have a nice advantage.
Okay.
c6.
All right.
Takes.
Still, you got to think this is going to be
Takes. Knight
work out
a3.
great for white, no?
Yeah. I thought white was a pawn ahead, but maybe I was just imagining with that passed a pawn that I was really happy. a3 is a strange square for the knight, but there was just nowhere else to go.
All right.
Queen d1, threatening knight e2 check.
A very, very big threat, indeed.
Queen c4 check, king g7, king h2 breaking the pin. Okay, otherwise I guess bishop d3 would have been quite annoying.
Absolutely.
Bishop e6, trying to move the queen off of the bishop on f1. Queen a6. That was the only square to defend the bishop, yeah?
Tatiev is just barely hanging on to her pieces here.
e4.
All right.
Yeah, I liked white's game quite a bit because I thought she was going to queen the a-pawn, but with the knight on a3, the bishop under pressure, the black knight on f4, and I think the idea of e4 was to open up this diagonal, so now sometimes queen d6 is annoying, and just put additional pressure, defend d3, knight d3 is a move sometimes. So mutual time trouble, this can go either way.
Absolutely, and there's always that e4, e3 to break open the king side somewhat as well.
And let's see if any moves were made since this position. Oh, okay, I went back. Let's analyze the game again.
Just copy.
Now I'm having my own technical difficulties.
Just do a copy, and then the game number, and you'll be fine.
Okay. And we have, after the check, she went back to a6.
All right.
Repeating the position, defending her bishop on f1.
Exactly.
Queen d6, threatening all kinds of discovered checks.
Nasty, nasty discovered
Knight
check.
c4, finally getting the knight off of the a3 square. Wow, these are difficult moves to make, and we're at move 40 for white. Black still has to make her 40th move. And we could take the knight and then have many discovered checks, but any of them good.
Right. So, for example, pardon me, bishop c4, queen c4. White's getting ready to rev up the a-pawn, and pawn on e4 is, and after a discovered check like knight d3 check, white would just drop back with her king and be perfectly happy. So I'm not sure that this move queen d6 was well timed by
It looks
Katya.
scary, but maybe Tatev had figured it out and realized the discovered checks weren't so bad. Time to get my knight off of a3.
Definitely. So, and the queen was doing great job on d1. So I think a key reversal occurred in that particular moment, and I'm sure queen d1 to d6 will get second guessed.
And with just 8 seconds left on her clock, she played bishop takes c4.
Wow.
And now both sides get an extra 30 minutes.
Wow.
And this seems like white has withstood the attack, and now the question is, how strong is that a5 pawn? Pretty strong.
Pretty strong. And we'll go now to Maurice, who has some insights he'd like to share.
Well, yes, lots of excitement on different boards. And first of all, let's get to a decisive game. In the game Ni versus Melakina, this game ended in a victory for black after a gross miscalculation. Well, we knew that white had sacrificed a piece early in the game, but after bishop to g2, knight to d5, she threw out this move e6. Queen takes e6. Now look, her queen is under attack. It is trapped. The only move is bishop takes d5 to save it. But instead she tried rook takes c6, a tempo on the black queen, and it didn't matter anyway, but overlooked this move, queen to e3 check, and after the king moved, then simply knight takes b6, and there went a queen. She kept playing in the game, but it's not going to matter. It's over after a few more moves, a bishop to c3 offering a trade, and then just pieces getting to great squares, and then bishop e1 attacking that king, and just ripping that off, and then bishop to f2, and now it's going to be mate really quickly when a queen lands on h4. This knight bishop move, just stopping the king from running. Of course, those moves are easy to see once you're up a queen, so a devastating loss for Victoria Ni, having already lost, in fact, to the youngest player in the competition, ESWARAN. Let's go to that game and check that out, because ESWARAN has her hands full. She is definitely winning. This position of hers right here, see if I can get that up. There we go. This position of hers right here is definitely technically winning. She has a couple of options here. Let me get our analysis board together. Right here, white is in control up a pawn, this pass pawn especially, with really strong chances. There are different ways to play, but Houdini likes a5, giving away the pawn, saying you can have it. After queen takes a5, then queen takes d6, creating a new and improved pass pawn, the d pawn, because now that anchors a queen check here, and you can just push that baby home. This is a gigantic way to play the position if she finds it. However, after a5, there's a problem. She has to calculate the move queen takes on d5. And after this move, the move a6, and this calculation is funny. She might be worried about some discovery check, but we saw in the last position with Tatev that not all discoveries are created equal. This move check actually runs into an easy counter check, and now white is totally winning here because of the queen trade. This a-pawn is going to go home. So she has to find this move. She doesn't have to, in fact. a5 is not the only move. It just happens to be an all-star move and the best move in the position. We'll see if she can find that, because if she does, that'll give her 2 points, and she'll be only a half a point behind the leaders. It seems that she's played a different move, however. She's played the move queen to h4, also better for her, but not as much as a5 was. a5 was really a serious first-class move, but she has definite winning chances still after this queen move, but she's made her life a little bit more difficult. We'll see if she can press home an advantage, and it looks like king e5 has been played, and that's the best move in the position. The veteran trying to hold her own now against the rookie, ESWARAN, up against it to see if she can win this game and be only a half a point behind in this year's Women's Championships. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Maurice. I was just about to say that that move a5 was not my first move. I wasn't thinking of that, and I was actually thinking of the move that ESWARAN played, which was queen h4. So
proving that humans are still human.
Humans are still human, and I like her position. Now,
yes.
In the
I
game
wanted
of
to pull this up because
FOISOR, please. You had Sabrina.
This is giving Rex a sigh of relief. This is the last player who can take the $64,000, Sabina FOISOR, but not in a few minutes that will be gone.
Because Anna Zatansky is roping the point home.
Yeah, and the last move actually was very important. It was move 40.
All
and
right.
Anna made the time control with a minute left. And, well, this looks tremendous for black, and probably the game will be over shortly.
Right.
A very nice game from Anna. You know, I've been commentating on the championship and women's championship several times over the last few years.
Absolutely.
And it seems to me that Anna plays better with black. It seems like when she has nice victories, they're usually with the black piece just overpowering her opponents. And this seems like a really good example.
Yeah.
So if Anna does win this game, as we suspect, then she'll be tied for first with Irina Krush. And, well, not too surprising. Now, with Alyssa winning her game, which we just discussed against Victoria Ni, Alyssa, well, also very strange. Only one player in both events had 0 out of 2. A very close. You would think somebody.
Field. Yeah.
And Alyssa was probably winning yesterday and won her game today. So you can start 0-2, you could start 2-0, but it's a race. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon.
Well, it's amazing that it goes to show how truly difficult it is to win all your games in a national championship. And only after 3 rounds, it would appear, no one is going to be eligible for the Bobby Fischer Prize.
2 rounds in the championship and 3 rounds in the women's.
And
it
that's
shows
all
you
it
how
took.
difficult it is.
And
it just makes Bobby's feat even more amazing when you think 11-0.
Wow, wow. I still recall this conversation I had with Anatoly Karpov, legendary world champion, and I asked him about Bobby's result of winning 20 Grandmaster games in a row. And he said it was just unimaginable, like this was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I asked him how many Grandmasters in a row had he defeated. Now, this is one of the most formidable world champions ever. And he said on 2 occasions he had gone 6-0, on 2 occasions. And I said I had on 2 occasions gone 7-0. And I told him that he was part of my 7-0 streak. I had to get that one in. But let's throw it back at Maurice, because he has a very special guest with him in the studio.
Thanks, Yaz. I'm with Alyssa Melakina after a victory. Must be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, it does feel good to finally score a win in this tournament.
Now, we saw the opening play, and we saw some unusual moves. She played B3 against your G6, and after you played Bishop G7, she played C3. None of us had ever seen that before. What did you think when you saw that variation?
Well, I've never seen it before either, but I think I know what happened there. She was probably expecting me to go knight f6 after knight f3, which is what I usually play. And I guess she was planning some kind of system with d4 there. But then after I started with c5 and g6, that threw her off. So she started improvising. And after e5, d4 was no longer possible. So she was just stuck in the position that she got.
That was a big bit of improvisation, really creative bit of improvisation. But then the position got somewhat normalized. It didn't seem like her position was so bad until she got to this position and sacrificed a piece on e5. How did you feel when you saw this move land on the board?
I was surprised that she took such a drastic measure. For the last 5 moves or so, we were playing around her queen getting trapped. After I played bishop b4, her queen is out of moves, and knight c8 is always in the air. So I could tell that she was definitely worried about that, and she was trying to find a way to get her queen out of this clamp, but there's just no escape, so she tried to complicate things in time trouble.
Indeed, and then later she blundered her queen straight. What did she say anything about the blunder, or what were her comments when you played queen e3 check and suddenly you were taking her queen?
Well, she was surprised to see queen e3 check, but I think she knew that even up to that point, she was already worse after knight takes c5. I think here she should have been a bit more calm, because if I play knight c8 in a position like this, she can take on c6 and she'll be down in exchange.
Let me get that off. See, whose move is it here? Oh, it's White's move. It's White's move. So if White plays, let's say, a casual move, let's just make a random move.
Sure, move the knight out of the threat of the rook, right? And if I play knight c8, then rook takes c6, and she's down in exchange, but you know.
More survivable than giving away a whole piece, to be sure.
Definitely, but we saw in my game yesterday when things got complicated, even when I was up material, I couldn't convert, so I think she was trying to play more practically here.
Indeed. So you're at 1. I mean, at least you got off the schneid. It's not 0. You're at 1. Who do you play tomorrow?
Oh, tomorrow the women have a rest day.
Tomorrow you have the day off. Right. Excellent. So winning before the rest day, that's right. So it's great to have a win going into the next day, but you're still at 1. What do you do to now keep this momentum going?
You know, just like I said yesterday, take it one opponent at a time. In the round robin, we play everyone. So even if I have a bad start, doesn't mean I have to end that way. Even if I started with 2-0, it wouldn't have meant anything, because I would have still had to play the top players. So now the important thing is that I got my confidence back and I'm ready to take on the next games. I took what lessons I could from my first 2 rounds. I noticed that I was getting better positions, but I could never convert because I was in time trouble. So I just told myself that, okay, by move 15, I'm just going to have like close to an hour on the clock left, because otherwise, if you're down time, it's like being down material. So that's what I tried to do this game, and I had enough time to avoid all the landmines in this crazy game.
Good quote. If you're down time, it's like being down material. We'll keep that one. Hopefully Ray Robson learns that one sometime soon. Alyssa Melakina, thanks so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Alyssa Melakina with a great quote, guys. You've heard that one before. If you're down time, it's like being down material. That's a good one for the kids. Let's keep that one in mind going forward. Back to you guys.
Just a second, I'll write it down for my new book. Just a second. I'll take authorship. We do have a development in round 3. One of our co-leaders, Alex Lenderman,
is now the clear leader.
Is now the clear leader, as he has won in his game against Alejandro Ramirez. Great opening preparation. Led to a huge advantage. He had a material advantage of an exchange. He was making it difficult for himself, Ben, but he found the right track take us through the last few moves, because Maurice was showing a possibility of setting up a fortress.
Yeah, let's see how he ended up breaking through here. So white had this very unusual pawn structure, all pawns on the white squares, but how does black break through? And well, maybe Alejandro should have left his pawn on g3. Maybe g4 wasn't so good. But again, defending the whole game. No
It's
fun
tough.
at all. And he got his rook active. He got to break through here.
Oh.
So yeah, knight e1, that can't be. But yeah, maybe thought he was in some sort of zugzwang, or that rook g3, rook g2 was coming anyway. Yeah, and this wasn't actually very difficult for him because his king got active.
The rook gets active.
Yeah, everything's active for black.
And
he wins the pawn.
Now he's
and
cleaning
now it's
up.
very easy. Attacks another pawn, and this is a very nice finesse at the end. He can't go to the c file because rook check wins the knight, and otherwise rook d4 is attacking everything.
Right. I was just thinking king e2. I might have played for one more trick. After rook d4, I would have tried knight e3, and I would likely resign after king d8. But if you play rook takes e4, then bishop b7, and I've got a knight fork to win a rook, win the exchange back. So, but okay, that was. But I play it just to that last moment. But obviously, it was gone at that point, and Alex was winning. He has joined us in our studio. He's with Maurice, our clear leader of the U.S. Championship, Mr. Lenderman.
Let me just add that he's from Brooklyn, like I am, and is Irina Krush. So they too are leading the tournament right now, although Krush has got Zatonsky on her heels, winning her game, about to tie with her. Welcome to the show, and congratulations on your victory.
Thank you.
So tell us the truth. This had to be homebrew preparation. You played so fast in the opening, your opponent looked dead just from the beginning of the game.
Well, I don't know. I thought it was not so clear. I mean, up to here was definitely preparation, and I knew about the move h6. I think there are some other games which went castles, or maybe bishop takes d4, maybe the Karakin Rajabov game. But I knew about h6, knight f5. And the idea is after castles, knight takes h6 could be very dangerous, although that might be playable as well, but I couldn't remember that. So my only option was king f8. And from what I analyzed, this was supposed to be okay, but after this, I actually didn't remember it very well. I just vaguely remembered some ideas.
Really? I mean, after knight g3, you played the move h5. That was unclear to you what was happening?
Well, I knew after knight g3, in particular, h5 and knight g4 was the idea, but I wasn't 100% sure if I actually played it in the right move order. But it looked to me that I probably did, and
I would say so.
Because after Ramirez taught for 40 minutes, then obviously I felt much more comfortable. It looked like lines were working out for me. It looks like it should be roughly equal, but of course, it's when you don't know the position, it's quite unpleasant to play.
Indeed, very unpleasant. So you play pretty quickly, even though you say you were not you weren't familiar or you weren't sure of it. Were you thinking on his time that if he played a natural move, you would just bang down your move? Were you doing that on purpose?
Yeah, naturally, of course, I expected 94, knight g4, and g3. It looked like, well, if not 94, he's passive, so this looked kind of forced, and I was already thinking in advance while he was thinking for 40 minutes, what am I going to do here? And obviously the other natural move is b5, but after knight takes d5, I couldn't really make that line work, so therefore I already decided in advance that I should play bishop a7 because I didn't really see anything clear-cut for him that would be, very good for him. So I played it, and I wanted to see what he does.
So you were solving all these moves at the board at some point, like right around now. You're actually on your own.
Yeah. At this point, I am. Yes.
So we thought you were still deep in your preparation, banging down the moves. When he played the move bishop to f4, and then he played
e5 is the only move.
e5. And bishop g5, here we did see you think for a while, so you were trying to figure out what the best idea was.
I saw that idea, and I saw that idea in advance, but it was still pretty complicated, because the thing is, I wanted to play f6 at first. Okay, I made the best move, okay. I wanted to play f6, but then after h3, you can show that. f6,
Sorry, I'm using my left hand, so. All right, let me, oh, I get what it is. It's this thing. All right, so there we go. F6.
Yeah, F6, H3, F takes G4,